Welcome explorers. I'm Jasmine from the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, and we're just so excited to have you guys here today to join us for our virtual explorer experience with the San Diego Model Railroad Museum.
All right, welcome to the San Diego Model Railroad Museum. Well, not really. Our exhibits aren't open right now. We don't really have access to the building to get into the layouts. The layouts are inhabited by club members, and club members maintain them and operate them, and nobody's going to the museum right now. So you are here in my layout at my home here in San Diego. But just a couple things. It is the Model Railroad Museum that we are spotlighting. And the mission there is to research, collect, preserve heritage of American railroading with scale models of California railroads. And there's multiple layouts down there. If you haven't been there, I'm sure lots of you have. I highly recommend it. There's an O scale, which is, 1 to 48, I believe. Yes, 1 to 48 scale. And it's a pretty large scale. And there's mountain scenes and a narrow gauge railroad there. And across the aisle, there's an HO scale railroad. The scale railroad, 1 to 48, and it's realistically representing the San Diego San Diego, Arizona Eastern Railroad as it went in San Diego, from San Diego out to El Centro. And it's very impressive. They have a part that runs into Mexico just like it really does. Behind them is the Southern Pacific, the Tehachapi Pass. A very, very impressive layout in terms of its build in scenery and realism. You'll see places like Bakersfield and Mojave, Sierra Nevada Mountains, of course, the Tehachapi Loop. And that group is highly into operations, which makes the process of model railroading very much a community thing as well. Maybe I'll get to talk about that a little bit later. This layout we're in today is an N scale layout, 1 to 160 scale. So the trains are about that tall. And the N scale layout down at the museum is called the Pacific Desert Lines. It represents a route that was planned in 1855 for San Diego and Arizona Eastern Railroad, but it was never built that way. They built it differently. Then this layout is a optimistic view of a prosperous railroad that could have been, and it does not go into Mexico, and it goes from National City through downtown San Diego all the way out to Yuma, Arizona. So you have all those scenes. It's a very impressive railroad, and from an operation standpoint, it is really, really impressive. So, and then of course it's a toy train railroad. Again, it's an O scale, but it's 3 rails. And they have lots of good scenery and terrain that they have made. Classic Toy Trains magazine in 2012 put them in the top 10 for layouts like that. So those are all.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes. Everything about the museum is pretty impressive. If you know anything about model railroading and the history of model railroading and the different kinds of things that are available throughout the world in the United States. There's one more layout down there, and then we'll get on with a tour of my railroad. The Centennial Garden Railroad was built in 2015 off the back of the museum, back door. You have to go through the museum to get to it. And it is solar powered, drought resistant plants. There's a trolley that runs through there, the same trolley that they would have had in the 1915 Expo, and it was built as the centennial for that particular event. And it is very, 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 very cool, worth the see. So anyway, that's the museum, and we'll talk more about the museum a little bit too. I can put my notes down now because I know my own railroad pretty well. So I spent time at the museum. I'm a board member. I belong to a club, and I don't belong to them now, but I have belonged to the N Scale Club, thus N Scale, where I learned a lot about scale modeling. So I wound up doing a lot of research and getting really interested in the Southern Pacific in Oregon, from Eugene to the Cascade Summit. Well, today we're going to go in the opposite direction. We're going to start at Klamath Falls, and we're going to move through the railroad towards Eugene, and we will be going westbound. Well, if you know anything about geography, you're pretty sure that Eugene in Oregon is north of California, north of San Francisco, but San Francisco was the headquarters for Southern Pacific. So And that was the westernmost point. So anything going towards San Francisco was west. So, and also, if you look at the map, Eugene, Oregon is more eastern and Southern Pacific is more western. Lots of times, if you've ridden the Coast Starlight on Amtrak, you know you're going north and south. That's how Amtrak talks about it. But let me get up from my chair and let's get started. So my railroad resides in a 6x12 tough shed. It is a shed. You can get it at Home Depot. And we did for storage, and it became a railroad at some point.
Oh, can we see the outside too? Outside in?
Yeah. And I was going to start outside, and I didn't because my neighbor is cutting down his tree. But let's see how it goes. It's really, really loud.
It's not too bad, but wow, look at that.
Yeah. So it's a small little building, and I've got a lot of railroad packed into it. In fact, one summer, my model railroading project was to build a ditch from the house to the shed for power. So there you go. So that kind of gives you the context of what we're looking at. But when you start looking closely at the scenes, you don't realize how small it is. And I can get, talk about operations later, but I can get three operators in here for 2 or 3 hours, happily running trains. Pretty amazing.
This isn't a question, but someone says that they love the train shed.
Yeah, it's great. I just when I'm in trouble, my wife says, "Go to your shed." So here I am. All right, let's look up at this device I have up here on the wall. This is actually an elevator. It has 5 shelves on it. It's for staging. So we have 2 shelves here that is called West Staging or Klamath Falls, and it represents all points west. So trains come to the railroad and they leave the railroad. So there's one way off these onto the railroad. And the bottom shelves will come back to these because this is Railroad East. This is Eugene. It represents that. It's staging. So it's where trains can leave and depart onto the railroad. And we can start having some realistic movements. And this center track here, there's actually 2 tracks on each shelf, is how trains get from one level to another because it is a double-deck railroad. So I will not move the elevator for you today. It is operated by a drill motor and a winch. It is quite loud, and it takes 2 people to make sure that the railheads line up. I don't think it's real great for video.
Oh yeah, that sounds kind of complicated.
Yeah, you'll get to see trains move and without the elevator, and you'll get the idea. So coming back up here to Klamath Falls, the train that we're going to start moving would have originated in Klamath Falls, and one of these 2 shelves would have been interfacing with where it says main siding and west switch right over here. It would have been interfacing with that and going right on off. So go ahead, let's step up and take a look at Crescent Lake. I have a location there called Crescent Lake, but it's also called Summit. And that's because I wanted there to be caboose switching in Crescent Lake, which they did. It was a division point for the Southern Pacific. And then I also wanted to be able to turn helpers because it is the Cascades after all. And helpers would need to cut off and turn on a Y. And that was at the Summit. So I couldn't decide which one I wanted more, so I just made them the same location. Little poetic license.
We have a little question really quick. So the gray shelves are called the elevator. Why is that?
Because it moves. It goes up and it goes down. It's on 24-inch gliders. Yeah, we got that in the video. I'm getting help with my video today. 24-inch sliders, and it goes up and it goes down. So right now it's in upmost position. Maybe we can play it a little bit after we've gone through the railroad if we have time, if someone wants to see it. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yes, definitely.
It's usually when people have model railroads and they have 2 decks, they build a helix, which is a circular track that goes around like a corkscrew, and every turn brings you higher or lower. I didn't do that. I have a straight track that goes up and down, and that moves the trains from one position to another. We ready to to board a train and start moving west?
Definitely.
All right, let's go. And if you listen carefully, I hear that the power tools are going outside now, but if you listen carefully, you'll be able to hear the trains as well, hopefully.
Yeah, you can hear them. Oh, there goes.
All right. And we're going to hope everything works just fine. And we're off. So
look at them go.
This is a pile of foam insulation board that you see here will eventually be the mountain here at Crescent Lake and the summit. And it is quite rough, and I'm going to be redesigning the whole thing because it is not doing what I want it to do. It is very big and cumbersome, and it doesn't want to move very easily when trains get stuck in there like they are right now. So can I switch places with you? I'm going to switch places with my camera person here. And I tell you what I did is I tested this over and over and over. And this little train ran through there. Here he comes. All right. So we either had dirty track or something going on back there. So this is Noisy Creek Bridge. I will, oh my goodness. This is live. I can't pause the video.
No worries. Well, in the meantime, we have a couple questions.
Yeah, go for it.
What kind of engine is that? It looks similar to a Super Chief.
It's an E8. EMD E8. It does have that similar look to the F units. There we go.
Nice. And how long have you been working on this?
Oh, too long. I have been working on this layout probably for about 10, 12 years. And you'd think it would be further along.
It's still very impressive.
Because I'm working full time, got a family, and I tend to work in fits and spurts. So basically we're heading down the Cascade Mountains, and these mountains will be covered with trees. And that aqueduct will have water under it and all kinds of stuff. We're coming into a town called Wicopee. This, I believe, was a employee station. They have a feature here, a track here called an outfit track. And my belief is that what they had on that track was a firefighting train. So at some point I'm going to build myself a firefighting train, and it'll live here. And you can see this picture here is kind of a representation of what I might be going for when I get to the point where I get all that scenery done. As we go further and further along, there'll be more and more scenery. This is definitely a work in progress, and the scariest part of it is scenery. I learn as you go. People tell me it's easy, and I guess it is, but it's a little intimidating than even the rest of it was building the benchwork and doing electronics.
Wow. Well, what power system does your track use?
It's called DCC. It stands for Digital Command Control. And basically, in years past, you would turn the power on, the train would move, you turn the power off, the train would stop. With DCC, it's a different kind of current. It's AC current of a sorts. And it allows you to individually control lights and sounds and have two trains moving on the same track, independent of one another. So I'm moving this train. No other trains are moving because it has an address. It has an electronic chip, digital chip in it that communicates with the system. So, and then we can do all kinds of fun stuff. You see, we're getting on the elevator now. And the elevator, this shelf is called Heather Siding. It's a location about halfway down the Cascades. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the train here because the next step would be to lower the elevator so that this track would line up with this spot right here. And I have a train waiting for us there. So let's get them going.
We have another question.
Oh, good, please.
Yeah. How did you get the electrical circuit to connect between the main track and the track on the elevator?
Oh, that's a great question.
We have nothing but the best questions here.
Yeah. Let me make sure this train starts up. Here we go. It's moving now. Each track on the elevator, there's 2 tracks on each elevator with they diverge into one on the end, but then they separate into 2 so you can have passing trains. But if the shelf is lined up with the layout, there's magnets that turn on the power to that track. So no trains will move on a shelf that's not lined up, for one. But how does it get there? That was the question. And if we have an opportunity, I'll show you the back of it. And we can probably step outside and do that when this train arrives in the next station. There's a red and the white. There's 2, they can be any colors you want, but there's 2 colors, one for each rail. And you'll see here is a red wire. And on the other slider, there's a white. And then on the back of the elevator, I have all the tracks wired together to the other part of the slider that's stationary. Well, this is the stationary one, the one that it's to the other piece, whatever it is, the one that's attached to the elevator. So the electrical current for the red flows through here, and the yellow and the white flows through here. And that's basically it in a nutshell.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and we're going to take, and in 5 minutes, we'll do our little Q&A.
Oh, we're far along already. All right.
I know, it's so exciting. Always happens.
Then let's move forward through this station without stopping, because I want you to be able to see Springfield, which is where I have most of my scenery in progress, but it's coming along further than the rest. So this is a photo backdrop in Washington that looks a lot like the photos I took when I visited Oak Ridge, Oregon. So I went ahead and put that up there to represent it. Sometimes good enough is good enough.
It still looks really gorgeous. And even when you kind of back up, it looks very realistic.
Thank you. That's the goal. All right, we're here in Springfield, and once you get around to the left-hand corner, you'll see kind of where I'm going with stuff. But this has representative industries that is in Springfield, Oregon, and I'm trying out all my techniques that I've been learning. You'll see as you move towards the furniture factory and the lumber company here in a minute that I have ballast and dirt down. The dirt is actually from Oregon. Collected it in Oregon, sifted it, and put it on the layout.
That's awesome. You said it's from Oregon?
From Oregon, yeah. We stopped.
I love it.
We were on a drive. We drove from Eugene, where we stayed, out to Oak Ridge to visit. They have a little museum there where I got a lot of photos. We stopped under the Salt Creek Bridge and collected dirt in a bucket. My wife and daughter were shaking their heads the whole time.
No, I love how intentional that is. That's awesome.
Those are mock-ups based on kits that I'm going to build or modify for those locations, so I get an idea of what it looks like. The station.
Sorry. We have a couple questions that are actually about that. Did you build, or did you scratch build your buildings, or are they kits, or are they a mixture of both, or?
All of my buildings, I have either modified the kit, and my plan is to do some scratch building. If the camera would point at that paper building right there, I did all of the research to make a mock-up of it, and so that's going to be my first try at actually completely scratch building a building. But just about everything here has been modified from the original kit. I can say that much. Like that building was supposed to be that long. It was supposed to be more square, and I changed it so it would be a different shape. That kind of stuff. You'll learn as you go.
That's awesome. I mean, it makes sense of why it would take so long to do that. But I love how intentional and how much detail there is in everything.
Yeah, I tend to overthink it. It takes me a while. So I'm good if there's questions and answers. think my brain is empty.
Yeah, so if you guys have any burning questions you have, whether it's about this kid or model railroads in general, we are here to answer them. We have a question. What type of trains are they? Which model?
What type of trains? Which model are they? So the train that you were watching go by has 2 locomotives on it, two F3s, EMD F3s. Is that what the question's referring to?
I think so.
Yeah, if it's manufactured, they're Kato. If you're getting into model railroading, particularly in N scale, and others too, Kato is a really good brand to go with. Kato, it's a Japanese brand. Otherwise, we're in N scale. 1/160 is the scale. The first train had an E8 on it. Oh, let me show you this. That'll be fun. I have a cab forward. They used a lot of cab forwards. Those were the steam engines, and they used them for helpers a lot on the hill. And I can fire him up for you. I'm not going to take him anywhere. He's a little. Here we go. To show them the cab forward over there in Oak Ridge. So it makes a lot of nice sounds. Just point them over to the cab forward here on the ready track. So that's a lot of fun. I make people put them on the front of trains and take them up the hill, and they have to struggle through that.
Oh my gosh, that is super fun. I love it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
do you pick the trains to match the age you're aiming to recreate, or is it limited to what's available?
A little bit of both. What's nice about picking an era to model, a time period and a location, is that you're not tempted to buy a bunch of stuff just because it looks cool, and then wind up buying a bunch of stuff you don't need. It's expensive. It really directs how I spend my money on the hobby. So I have a cab forward because they run the cab forwards on the hill. I should have a couple other ones, but they're a little pricey. So I think I'm going to be happy with my one. But when I'm choosing the rolling stock and the locomotives, I'm choosing them specifically for the time period.
That's awesome. And did you always have trains, or did you go through a period of life without them, like a dark period where you didn't have them?
The dark ages. Yes. Yeah. I currently picked this hobby up about 10, 12 years ago, but had always kind of been interested in doing it. When I was 10 years old, my dad and I built a tabletop layout in N scale, built it on a door, pretty classic. Built an N scale layout on the door and went around a couple times, got the wiring done, track laid, operational, and then it stopped. We didn't go much further with it, but I kept those trains, and eventually it was a starting place for this when I decided that I wanted to do this. So, I'm a teacher. I spent first half of my career working for a nonprofit for a school for kids with special ed. Kids became a hobby for me. I really enjoyed working with the kids and figuring out how to help them. But I needed a retirement, so I went to public schools, and the result of that is I needed a hobby. So that's what happened.
I love it. And is your track custom built from a company?
Yes, I did not hand laid my track. Now, if you want to see something pretty cool, the N scale layout at the museum, all that track is hand laid. The ties and the rail are all hand laid. But I did not do that. I have, there's two things. There's the straight track parts, and then there's the parts where the train diverges to go one way or another, and those are switches or turnouts. So Atlas makes some really nice turnouts that are really realistic. And it's really easy to get things oversized in N scale because you need it for reliability, but these are pretty darn close to what would be realistic, at least to look really realistic to your eyes. And then the other, the in between pieces, which is flex track, you can come in like 3 feet long, and you can bend them to the shape and the direction you need them to be. Is a different company, Microengineering. Story with that is it's all recycled track. When I first joined the museum and I first joined the N Scale Club years ago, one of the first things that happened is we went and took down the layout for a member who had passed away. And I inherited a lot of that track, and it's now here on this layout. So his layout lives on.
Oh, and we have our last two questions.
Okay.
The first one is, I think we saw a section that swings up to, I think I saw a section that swings up to complete the track. Where does that go?
Yes, very, very perceptive. Here we go. I will put it up for you. This is a Y. It's just right here. The thing is, Oak Ridge had to turn those cab forwards and face in the correct direction to go back up the hill. And they needed a Y to do that. And that's what this piece of track does. You go along this and you come out of it, you're facing the other direction. But there wasn't space for it otherwise. So I did this. And again, the power goes through the hinge and through the arm here. When I connect it with this little bolt, we get the red and the white. And it has power when I put it up.
Wow, I didn't even notice that at first. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'd almost forgotten about it in terms of talking about it today.
No, I love it.
Yeah, it's not my original idea. I read an article and adapted it to the situation. So that's everything you do. You learn from somebody else.
That's very true. And our last question is, what are your favorite parts of the N-scale layout at the museum?
What's my favorite part of the N-scale layout at the museum? And the best thing about that N-scale layout is the way that track plan is designed. One of the things that the Mesa Club does is runs operations, runs trains realistically. And I could go on and on about that, but I know we don't have time. And that was my first introduction to model railroading, was accidentally finding myself at an operating session at the N-scale layout. That's where I first met everybody and joined the club. And the way that layout is designed, it's just really ideal for running trains realistically, having jobs and purpose for the trains. So it's a lot of fun.
That does sound like a lot of fun. Oh, thank you so much, Brian, for sharing with us today. This is so awesome.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Explorers, for joining us and for asking all those awesome questions. They were super good. Be on the lookout for new virtual Explorer experiences in the future. And if you want more Balboa Park information and content, including live chat and other videos from across the park, visit culturalpartnership.org/updates. That's culturalpartnership.org/updates. And we hope you enjoy this experience, and we can't wait to host you all again soon. Bye.